All right, welcome back to the House Committee on Government Operations, Military Affairs. We have a number of bill introductions that we're going to pick up this afternoon, and we're going to start with our very own Representative Nugent with H 726, an act relating to compliance checks by the Division of Liquor Control. So take it away, Representative.
All right. H 26.
Oh, no.
Hey, so I will say that I've been a little lax on this. I have given our own committee members the option of taking the chair as opposed to forcing them to do that. But I think by acclamation, if folks want.
It's a whole nother.
I'm willing to.
There we go.
I'm willing to defer to the committee. For the second half of the session, we just go right off the rails in here and get very punchy. Everybody starts sitting around, they don't have control.
It's control, it's just joking.
Don't worry, this is all just softening the ground for anybody who's doing their intro next.
Only get one first impression, don't.
That's true. I think I already.
Right.
Okay, we're all going to respectfully give Representative Nugent our attention now that we've harassed her into sitting in the witness chair.
It's shorter, so I feel like,
That's part of the experience.
yeah, okay.
They give you the short chair. So
Build my place. So this bill would give the Department of Liquor and Lottery more support in fulfilling its public safety role of preventing underage purchase of alcohol. Currently in Vermont, there is a statutory requirement to check tobacco licenses, but there is not one to check alcohol, even though it is part of their function and what they normally do. So in talking with the Department of Liquor and Lottery on this bill, it became apparent that this would be helpful and important, and to require that every retailer in Vermont be checked at least once every other year. And it provides a small appropriation to make sure that they have the resources necessary to fulfill that requirement. And that's basically it.
I like it.
Representative Waters.
Thank you. What is the current mechanism for checking or process for checking underage sales?
Good question.
Thank you.
The department will find youth who look like they could be in that age range and basically undercover go in and try to purchase alcohol from a retailer.
And last week, when we were hearing about the tobacco checks, they had a goal to check every, you know what I mean? They had like a goal. Do they have a similar number or percentage of stores or outlets that they try to visit every year?
Probably a better question for the department itself, but I believe it's not close to what the tobacco checking rate is because it's not in statute. So they try to use data to assess where the need is greater.
So piggybacking off of that question, I believe if you look back historically when the standards were established, I believe it was when the alcohol age was 21 and the tobacco age was 18. So they were looked at differently because of that span in age.
Be interested to know if there are a significant number more of the alcohol licensees, and my guess is that based on the numbers we heard, that answer is yes. Do you happen to know roughly what we're talking about here in terms of when you talk to DLL? I mean, did they give you any sense of how many more compliance checks they have to do versus what they do now in order to hit this threshold?
Yeah, that's a good question. Last time I was aware of the number of licenses in the state was probably at least 5 years ago, and I believe there were 5,000. And yeah, when we worked with DLL on the bill, so I think every few years is how it would be more feasible, because with tobacco, they check all of them every year.
I'm interested actually in hearing what DLL has to say about the feasibility of this, but it seems pretty reasonable to me. Anybody have any other questions for Representative Nugent?
Look at my computer.
think the committee will let you sit back in the regular seat.
Yeah.
Perfect. And we're running a minute ahead of schedule.
Need up some clock.
Thanks, Kate.
Representative, would you like to join us? Unless we've scared you away now with our treatment of our own committee member.
Big ag is rowdy.
Been up in ag in a long time.
Welcome you, Chair.
Here's my room. Stories.
So I'll direct the committee's attention to, this is H 426 that we're looking at.
Great. For the record, I'm Heather Supernaut, representing the Windsor 4 District. And I want to thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to introduce H 426, which proposes to reform our current laws around the use and sale of cannabis in a few key areas. I will also say that I am not an expert in cannabis, and I would encourage the committee to hear from rural Vermont, the Vermont Growers Association, and the Racial Justice Alliance, as they were instrumental in crafting this bill. This body has made important and thoughtful strides in our cannabis legislation over the years, and this bill really looks to expand upon what we have in foundation in a way that is reflective and considerate of the current cannabis landscape. That being said, H 426 is fairly comprehensive, with the primary focus being on the creation of new types of cannabis establishment licenses and expansions within the provision of the cannabis excise tax revenue. In the interest of time, I'll start by providing a high-level overview of each of the proposed changes. First, this bill proposes to permit the consumption of cannabis anywhere tobacco use is permitted and to increase the amount of THC permissible in a single package of cannabis product from 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams. And I think that might have been done last year, so thank you very much. It proposes changes in the maximum amount of THC permitted in a single serving of a cannabis product from the currently permissible 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams. And it would also allow Tier 1 and Tier 2 cultivators to sell cannabis directly to consumers without a retailer license. And I could see that being really exciting at farmers markets, for example. I'll now list the two changes and licenses that are proposed. First, it would establish a delivery service license, initially to only be available to social equity applicants, and social equity applicants is defined by rule. A delivery service license will have a host of rules, including safe storage and requirements for proper verification of the age of customers. But delivery service is exactly what it sounds like: the transporting of cannabis and cannabis products for retail purposes. It would also establish a special event host license to allow the sale of cannabis to adult consumers for on-site consumption at private events, as well as the creation of a temporary event provider license to allow the sale of cannabis to adult consumers for on-site consumption in an event lasting not more than 4 days. A special events provider means a person licensed by the board to sell cannabis to adult consumers for on-site consumption at private events lasting not more than 1 week. And a temporary event host means a person licensed by the board to sell cannabis to consumers for on-site consumption in an event lasting not more than 4 days. The second half of this bill addresses equity by expanding upon existing language to go back to the body's original intent, which was set aside additional portions of the cannabis excise tax revenue for the Cannabis Business Development Fund and communities that have been disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. So under this section, 20% of the revenues raised by the cannabis excise tax imposed by section 7902 of this title would be transferred to the Cannabis Development Fund. And commencing in fiscal year 2026, 10% of the revenues raised by the cannabis excise tax imposed by the same section of this title shall be distributed by the Cannabis Control Board as grants to communities that have been disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. In addition to the existing set aside, this bill would also allocate 30% of the unexpended and unobligated balance of the Cannabis Regulation Fund that is transferred to the general fund to be used to fund substance misuse prevention, harm reduction, and treatment programming. And that is pretty much the extent of it. And I think at the very least, this bill provides a really good pathway for meaningful conversation about cannabis reform. So thank you so much. And please don't have any questions.
So I think just an easy one is So this bill has a lot of the elements that we've kind of discussed over the years that have been brought to us by Vermont Growers Association, Rural Vermont. So this is really kind of like the wish list bill, right?
This is the consolidated wish list.
Understood.
Yes.
And we've been taking some steps, I think, in the direction and working with some of those stakeholders. I'm interested in some of the language around like the opportunity zone. I don't know how familiar you are with the sort of details of how that was worked out, but some of the definitions that are in there around like what kinds of an area are we talking about that we kind of get that targeted money for if we, establish such a, is the idea that the Canvas Development Fund and that additional excise tax would sort of be targeted into areas that met that criteria?
Pretty much, yeah, but I think that would also be really open to committee discussion, if that was something that you felt made sense for that specific avenue.
Other questions for Representative Supernath?
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep in into the wonk right now, but the investment funds as well, like just kind of on that, like the activities, like in your mind, is it utilizing some of the tax revenue to invest in startups or maybe expansion of existing businesses?
And probably the creation of new businesses as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, like the startup or the expansion,
Certainly.
right?
Mhm.
And so like, one of the barriers right now for people in this industry is it's still federally recognized or federally classified as a legal operation, so it does limit access to traditional banking instruments and things of that nature.
Right. And wouldn't it be great if it was considered farming?
We just have
Yes.
Even that conversation.
It's not black and white.
Representative Henry, go ahead.
Thank you. I see that you're also, in this bill, you're also asking that someone who has been arrested can request that their record is expunged and or sealed, which are two different things, so it shouldn't be and or, expunged or sealed. So I didn't hear you mention that in your bill presentation, but I wanted to point that out for folks who are reading this. Do you have a preference whether it's expungement or sealing?
I do not, and I would really rely heavily on the judiciary committee for that.
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah. So would this be like an automatic expungement where now I believe it's a request to expunge?
And that expungement is only for the 3 years prior. It's not like an expungement forever. There was a time constraint on that expungement. Yeah. It's within really the most recent since upon legalizing that was critical.
And this is prior to March 2022.
Right.
And so you had mentioned, and we did allow we around the 1,100 milligrams on the, we did not change the per unit number, and I know that conversation has come up a bunch of times. So you've got the new thing in that section would be going from 5 milligrams per serving
Mhm.
within edible to 10 milligrams per serving.
Yes.
Any other questions for Representative Supernath? Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You caught us at the most jokey, fun part of our day, so.
I love it. We welcome you in ag.
We'll all come upstairs.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually, we may have to have one of our bills driven through your committee.
Thank you.
All right. Heard from that person? He's also got another minute, and we've been very efficient with our questions. Um,
I mean, there's components in that bring up a lot of the stuff we were already talking about, so.
Yeah, I mean, many of these things have been on the table for a while, but I want to make sure we're.
Oh, no. I think it was good to take a look at sort of like, some of the conversations we've had are far narrower with what an implementation, one of these provisions may look like. This is way broader
Yeah, and
in some of the aspects.
Oh,
Yeah.
just our next bill sponsor a minute here. And while we're waiting to see if Representative Christie is able to join us, Mr. Devlin is working on updates to the miscellaneous ethics bill and should have a draft, hoping to post it to the committee, give it to the committee ahead of the end of the day today, so folks have a chance to look at some of the changes. A couple more things that I've talked with committee members about this afternoon that I may ask for tweaks to see if we can get closer to something that it just clarifies some of the things in that bill. I think most of the questions we've had have been about sort of just making sure everybody's on the same page, especially with the disclosures. We're going to hear feedback on the ethics proposals from the Secretary of State's office on Thursday, because they're not able to make it tomorrow. Or later this afternoon, unless anybody's found anything in the technical corrections bill that they need any work on. Has everybody gone through all 457 pages of the technical corrections bill?
All Saturday and went through the entire thing.
Making sure that we've all done our
Like a typo.
I put it in.
All right. Representative Christie, can you hear us okay? Hey, Coach, can you hear us all right? Coach, a second here. Representative Christie's going to be doing a bill introduction on H730. If I understand correctly. There we go.
Yes.
Coach, can you hear us all right? Representative Christie, can you hear us? Coach, can you hear us? Yeah.
See, he's upstairs.
Yeah, Andrew's gonna chat and see if we can get on.
Yeah.
You're gonna go.
Yeah. See, you know.
And I go, yeah.
You can listen to his testimony from there.
You can put your cell phone on speaker and run it down to us.
Will you wave to us?
That's some good music.
All the technology is great. Except when Hey, Coach, can you hear us?
You sent the wrong guy.
Did we lose him?
I'll go get him.
Half the committee goes out to try to provide technical support.
I have 3 kids, I've never sent one after the other. From experience, it just, they don't come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coach, can you hear us?
Yes, finally, I'm
Great.
sorry.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So great. I'm glad that worked out. So you're here to do a bill introduction on H 730. So take it away, Coach.
Great, thank you. This is Coach Kevin Christie, Hartford, Vermont, and I'm introducing H 730. And the subject of the bill is an act relating to the uniformity of removing members of state boards and committees or commissions. I'll get into the reason for doing this. I know that your committee has addressed in detail the problems that were encountered during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's formulation. And when there was a problem with that commission, having a member that didn't meet the expectation, of the intent of the commission. And it resulted in the member of the commission resigning, which was, let's say, a good outcome for the commission, because if that had not occurred, it would still, the problems that were occurring would have continued. So we have seen this happen before in other commissions where, let's say, attendance, it's not so much an attitude or disposition of the appointment itself, but the expectation of Vermonters in these cases is you will participate. We're not saying how you participate, but the expectation is you will be there and add as much diverse ideas that we would expect any member to bring to any organization. That's why we have multiple members. You don't ever see a committee loaded with one party or another party. There's usually, let's say, cross-pollination, so to speak, of ideas, and membership. And so, as we look at situations, there's one going on now that I can't get into right at the moment, but in talking with the governor's office, they've encountered situations where the only person they could remove would be the governor, because it was a gubernatorial appointee. And in the grand scheme of things, with you have the data in a better position than I do as far as the number of commissions we have. But there's hundreds of them. And so addressing, let's say, the day-to-day functionality of these committees by, the governor's office is a difficult task, to say the least. So that being said, what I was hoping in bringing this bill forward was that in those situations where a commission or a committee does not have a procedure within its rules to address this issue, we would be able to standardize the process that does exist in a number of committees and commissions right now. Thereby, allowing, that process to move the work of the people forward. So I guess that's the Cliff Notes version of the intent of the bill, if that helps.
Great. So Representative Christie, am I understanding right that if this bill were passed, for instance, if there's a member of a commission that's appointed by the Speaker of the House, then the Speaker of the House would have the right, after giving some kind of due process or a hearing to an appointee to sort of withdraw that appointment?
Yes, in those cases, that would make sense, and so too with the governor's office. We're not devaluing or de-appreciating the auspices of the appointer. It's access to a process, and like you said, due process.
Any other questions for Representative Christie? All right. Well, thank you very much for doing the remote introduction, Coach.
Well, thank you very much for listening. I know that it would, if you do bring it, forward, there's a situation going on now, and I'm not sure. We would probably have to talk, with the clerk of the house about, bringing forward a case that is in process, because it might have confidentiality issues at this point. But it is something that I would assure you, well, that's why we're even here with this bill. So, but we could talk if you decide to move forward.
Duly noted. Thank you very much, Representative Christie. All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks, Coach.
And it looks bright in your room, so that's
This is one of the first sunny days we've had in a month.
yeah, really. So enjoy your vitamin D.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, our next bill intro is from Representative Jerome. So you want to come join us at the table?
Thank you.
Welcome. You've got H 678 for the committee.
Yeah, so I have H 678. And this is a bill that would designate personnel at water and wastewater treatment facilities as essential personnel, and first responders. So as you all know, water and wastewater is critical to our public health and safety, and water and wastewater utilities have recently been designated as critical infrastructure by the Department of Homeland Security, but the workers have not received this designation in either the state or federal levels. Last summer, FEMA added water systems to its list of community lifelines, and drinking water and wastewater now have the extra focus from FEMA during an emergency. And I think our experiences this past year and this past summer with floods have all brought this this water to our heightened sensitivity and the importance of water workers. So H 678 is going to, The purpose is to grant first responder designation to water and wastewater and public works employees, and it would enable these employees to respond to emergencies in Vermont. So example, so I was speaking with the Vermont Rural Water Association about this and about some of the past problems that have happened because of this lack of designation, and I think we probably could all think of these examples. During Hurricane Irene, some of the operators were not allowed by the authorities to access their treatment facilities. And in the early days of COVID-19, when people were all asked to stay at home, except for essential employees, our water and wastewater workers were not deemed essential workers. During floods, high ice storms and high winds, Vermonters are asked to stay off the roads, but water and wastewater workers still need to get to those treatment facilities. In the past, some of the workers have been denied priority cell phone service to their FirstNet service, and access to treatment facilities were also denied. And during COVID-19, especially in the early days, these workers were not included in Vermont's definition of frontline workers and also did not get vaccines in the early stages. That's kind of the summary of this bill, and the basic gist of it is just to add the definition, expand that definition of water and wastewater workers as first responders. Just want to make sure that I'm speaking to the choir in this committee, but that want to make sure that any legislation goes through, make sure that we it's just not generally if this is to be taken up, that we're not talking about town employees, because many of the employees of water and wastewater are their own water districts. And so we just want to be sensitive about that. That's it.
Questions for the representative?
It's pretty straightforward. And it's actually, I was surprised that these workers were deemed as first responders or essential personnel.
Yeah, I'm interested to actually learn more about sort of what those designations mean during emergencies. I've been somewhat postponing our conversations about some of the flood response policy because I know we're going to get a bill from the Senate on that with the GovOps pieces, but there are some other flood related bills moving around the House. So we may end up getting some drive-bys and previews on those things, but it seems like this even as a standalone might make some sense. Have you consulted with the Department of Public Safety as you were crafting the bill?
I worked closely with the Rural Water Association, and then also with my the manager of our local water district.
Any questions for Representative Jerome?
No, not right now, but I've heard that this conversation come up via several other members, just as they've heard back from their communities and folks who live in this world. So.
Right, it's kind of it is some of the stuff, and I think as we all work through our jobs here, I'm like, what? No one thought about this before? Like, this kind of makes sense, right?
Right.
So anyway, this is just a little piece to fix a small fix for maybe a larger problem.
Great. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks. Let me know if you have any questions.
Just cruising along here today. Actually, a minute or so early here, but or Anthea, if you are ready to come back before us, did you find any last minute drafting errors or anything, or was the as presented technical corrections bill just a peak of perfection? We did not, in all of our diligent work over the weekend, find further improvements that might be made. So we honed.
I found it.
Oh,
We did. Yeah, so Anthea Dexter Cooper from the Office of Legislative Counsel for the record. So when we are referencing federal act, it's Pub LN0 NO, so public law number. And I found one that was PL, and it should have been PUB period L period NO period. So we changed that.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, I got you. I did not look. Did you, have you created a new draft?
No, we have not. I didn't want to confuse you. Drafting office has edited that one page. They know that the draft number will not change, but that one phrasing has changed. And they actually caught a mistake in how I did it because we strike out things that are getting deleted before adding things that are being inserted. So you'll always see the strikeout language before the underlined language. And I had reversed it in my fix. So there was a fix to the fix.
So,
What I will send you, and I will CC Andrea, we'll have that fix in it, and then when she posts it as the as approved version, it will have the public law. Correction on that.
so we'll get, we can vote on draft 2.1 with that one correction if we decide to do that now. And then we would get a clean copy that has that little fix. Okay. That is so funny.
So
Can we amend that on the floor?
So I think floor amendments on the technical corrections bill might inspire a little bit of uneasiness from some of our colleagues, so we're gonna avoid that suggestion, but thank you, Representative Byron.
Just looking for something to lighten them.
Oh, man, we're punchy enough for the first legislative day of the week. Whew.
No, Mr. Chair.
You know, a little bit of sunshine and everybody just gets kind of lightheaded here. So did want to just thank you, Anthea. This just 457 pages of technical corrections. This is an awfully big bill and a lot of work. And I think we always have fun with the technical corrections bill, but just want to respect the fact that this is an enormous amount of work. Any questions procedurally? Last minute thoughts? A debate about whether the I should really be capitalized or not in internet. Did you send Anthea what you sent the committee
No.
over the weekend?
We should do that.
Yeah, so Representative Nugent, do you want to tell Anthea what I'm talking about here before we get serious about this bill again?
Well, I was very excited. We got our copy of the New York Times this Sunday and there was a giant ad about fixing the internet and it was the first time I'd seen it in lowercase.
I'm gonna tell the editors that, they're gonna be really excited. I will also share that my husband texted me something today and it had cancellation and canceled in the same text message. And he used 2 L's in both of them, and I immediately told him. he was wrong.
Gotta be tough. With the technical corrections guru. All right.
I'll go for both.
Mrowicki.
Oh, wait, no, cancellation has 2 L's.
I was gonna say.
Yes.
You were not here when I did that.
Yes.
I was thinking we were pushing it.
Motion to approve?
So Representative Mrowicki has moved that we find favorable draft 2.1 of the technical corrections bill, and this is a committee bill.
So you're approving it for introduction.
Approving for introduction, draft request 240624, draft 2.1, with the amendment that we'll have in the clean drafts, changing the PL versus PUB.
PUB, period, space, capital L, period, space, capital NO, period. Public law number.
Great catch.
Jay, you didn't see that one?
I did, I just didn't, I wanted to leave it.
See if she caught it. Okay. Any further committee discussion?
Heat is on for presentation of that bill, I guess.
The clerk shall call the roll. Oh, and Representative Morgan is the reporter of the bill?
Yes.
Stress is on.
Representative Byram,
Yes.
Representative Boyden, yes. Representative Hagno.
Yes.
Representative Morgan,
Yes.
Representative Cooper Burlington,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Chase,
Yes.
Representative Waters Evans,
Yes.
Representative Cooper Randolph,
Yes.
Representative Nugent,
Yes.
Representative Hagley,
Yes.
Representative McCarthy,
Yes.
12-0-0.
Thank you very much. And I'll send that email now and you can reply directly to drafting numbers. Yeah.
I'll print that out, have it on the floor, so if anybody wants to recognize it while we're presenting.
I would never use 2 L's in one.
Yeah, we can just kind of stand it at ease for a moment, but remember that we're still broadcasting, so let's keep it all.
Hey, Addie.
Committee.
It means you, Colonel.
This is, we're trying to be accommodating of Representative Harrison.
Never heard that term.
Dealing with the beginning of the long slog of the FY 25 budget presentations. Speaking of which, this flags for me, there are a couple of presentations, including the Department of Public Safety, that are on the agenda this week. And we didn't formally talk about our renewing our budget, but I would love to have a volunteer if we're not doing a vote or something in here. I think it's on Thursday afternoon, that the public safety budget.
I met with Representative Harrison yesterday on Zoom to go over some of the ups and downs.
Fantastic. So you all are on it. If you haven't brushed off your budget section list from last year, or need a reminder of the assignments, I'll go back over that. But it would be great if, as the Appropriations Committee is hearing those budget presentations, as they apply to our areas of jurisdiction, having somebody in there to listen or ask a question or flag something that should have policy testimony over here, that'd be.
And as Representative Harrison did when he was in this committee, he was always first with the questions. Talk about yesterday's meeting.
He did very much in the same.
So great, Representative Harrison, we're running a little ahead of schedule, so if you're ready to go, filibustering.
Good afternoon. For the record, Representative Jim Harrison from Rutland 11. And I'm here to introduce to you H 525, which, as you folks well know, and I remember from my time on the committee, is basically enabling municipality something they can do if it fits for them. The bill simply proposes to authorize legislative body of a municipality to adopt an ordinance that prohibits the possession of firearms in a municipal building. Basically does no more or less. I can give you some background what prompted me first to look at this issue, but section 24 VSA 2291 starts off on number 8, to regulate, or this is municipal powers, to regulate or prohibit the use or discharge, but not possession of firearms within municipality or specified portion thereof. I totally understand why we have that in there. You wouldn't want to be driving along and all of a sudden you cross a town line and you're in a community that, say, for example, prohibited carry. We should have statewide rules on things like that. However, what's different and what the bill proposes to do is allow the municipality to make that decision in their own town-owned building. Today, because we're not a municipality, we can prohibit firearms in the state house, which we do. A private business can prohibit firearms in their place of business, whether it's a store or a restaurant. Even before S30 passed a few years ago, hospitals by and large prohibited firearms. We just made it a uniform state law, but it seems strange to me that a municipality, because municipalities can only do what we, as the legislature, say they can do under Dillon's rules. They, if I'm reading this correctly, I'm not a lawyer, cannot do it. Now, some have said, you know, there might be a court case that says, you know, maybe you can, maybe you can't. I talked to the League of Cities and Towns last session about this issue when it first came up. And they are not advising municipalities to ban firearms in their own town office because of the wording of this section of statute. And additionally, I asked, are any municipalities doing it? They could give me no reference to any towns that are banning in the town office. Why do I care? Give you a little bit of background on one of my communities, but it could happen in any community. One of my communities that I represent has someone that some have said can be a little bit of a bully, use language, demeaning, and has made reference that, and some have suggested, you know, maybe a little unstable at times, have made reference to, you know, bringing firearms to the town office whenever he goes, or there's a select board meeting, as a way of intimidation. Have made reference, although maybe, or maybe not serious, we don't know, reference that, you know, he might kill town officials, which has been reported to the state police, but because the person who received that didn't take it as a threat, they couldn't do anything. So as a consequence, the town office is closed. It's open for a few hours, 2 days a week, when there is a deputy sheriff on duty. So the town is spending their limited law enforcement budget on having a deputy sheriff at the town office for 2 very limited times that the public can go in and get records, questions, whatever, pay their tax bill. Select board meetings, planning commission meetings, all town meetings are now virtual, 100%. Thanks to the law that this body has passed for COVID, which expires, I think, sometime this summer. It's very, very unfortunate. This won't solve all those problems. But if they chose, if they thought it was best, and I would ask them to think hard about it, but if they thought it was best, they should have the same right that every other building other than town buildings have in this state. That's all this bill asks for. It doesn't say they have to. It doesn't say they should or shouldn't. I think they need to think twice about it. But that's an unfortunate situation. So to me, this is just enabling legislation and giving towns that option in its only town-owned buildings, which in many cases are places of voting. There are places for our select board meetings or committee meetings, or going in and paying your tax bill. So, happy to answer any questions. It's really pretty simple.
Representative Chase, go ahead.
Thank you. You said town-owned buildings. Would this impact any other town-owned facilities like parks or outdoor garage, town garage space, that sort of thing?
Municipal building. So to answer your question, I wouldn't take it at that. I mean, that would be a better question for Tucker Anderson. But I wouldn't as a layperson, town building, and it could be a building if it's just the town office. They may not, want to go to the town garage or that, but, town building. So that's how I read it, but thank you. Tucker could certainly clarify that, and if there was a way to clear that up, I certainly would support that.
Representative Harrison, you said that the recipient of said threat didn't see it as a threat and therefore state police cannot act on it. Can you help us understand more about that?
I'm relying on information that's secondhand, so I wasn't there. But, if I said to you, in the hallway, I'm going to get you after this meeting, you may take it, well, that's just, that's just Jim Harrison, being Jim Harrison, It's like, talking about my social life on Friday nights on the house floor, not very exciting, So.
But it's a threat, right? Like, that's like, it either is a threat or it is not. That's not a matter
Well,
of opinion.
Yeah, and that's always in the eye of the receiver of that. So, others that weren't there took it as a threat and promptly closed everything down.
You just answered that.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that despite the fact that whoever received some statement of imminent danger decided that that wasn't a worry to them, but the people surrounding them decided that they were going to act on that regard.
Right, because that person relayed to others what was said. I can't answer. It's not like this person, like many others, I'm sure, haven't been totally free and clear of the law. And I can give folks some background on that, but it was telling to me when I spoke to the colonel of the state police, he was familiar with this person from when he was first a state trooper. But some people are pretty good about going real close to the law and not going over it, but sometimes they do, and it only takes one mistake that could have tragic consequences. This will not fix that. I'm not suggesting it will, but if it makes the town employees more comfortable, if they chose to go that way, then I don't want to stand in the way of them having that ability to make that decision. Doesn't take anybody's rights away for carrying a firearm, except, just like if Walmart wants to ban them, they can. No one complains about that. They're a private business. No one complains about can't bring them into the state house. Can't bring them to the hospital. Those are choices. We could say tomorrow, you know what? They're allowed here. That was our option, or it's our predecessor's option.
Questions for Representative Harrison?
Maybe you don't know the answer to this, but assuming we were to pass this, give each town, like the one in distress, the option of making illegal the presence of firearms in those buildings, will they then not be virtual meetings? Will they go back to? Do you think that they would consider that?
I think they certainly would consider that. Being in person, as we know from our own experience, is vastly, I think, superior to meeting via Zoom for a variety of reasons. When during the pandemic, we needed to for health reasons. But hopefully we're beyond that. And from a public engagement, I think in person is always more productive. But on the other hand, you know, if you're going to have someone come in that's going to carry and you don't know if something's going to snap, and there could be tragic consequences. Maybe this helps, maybe it doesn't. It's just one tool that a municipality has, which they have very limited today.
Representative Moore?
I guess it's more of a statement than a question, but I'm not the most conversant person in all of these situations, but can we look to see if there are other laws that I guess it is a question again, but are there other things on the books that could cover this situation already? Has that been, had you thought that through
No.
in the process? Because I mean, I heard you say the threat thing, but I think there's an awful lot of stuff out there that already would, I guess, for lack of a better term, roll this person up if they got beyond that, but maybe that's just my understanding.
There may be, and I would certainly be open to any potential solution that would get at the same thing. All I'm looking for is give the town the option. This happens to be drafted in this section of statute. Some have suggested it could be drafted in another section of statute. I'm not a lawyer. You know, would be open to, you know, other ways to get at the same thing. And, you know, sometimes it's just helping people feel more comfortable with where they are. And that's worth something too.
All right, thank you. Representative Marroquin.
Appreciate you bringing this forward. Like, hope we can take this up, because I think I know the situation, or we have a mutual friend who's had an experience with that individual. Dangerous. And our municipal workers, and any of our citizens, when they're at a meeting in a town hall, should not have to deal with a situation like this, but especially our municipal workers who are there every day. So appreciate you bringing this up, and hope we can take it up.
Thank you.
This is a follow-up question to Representative Chase's question about whether it includes buildings. And again, I'm thinking about in particular the town garage. And was there any consideration in this? How are you going to notify the public in each town that they're not allowed to carry in the town garage there? And is there a requirement for a placard so big outside of each building to say you're not allowed, or how are you going to let the general public know?
Well, my suspicion is if you don't make it known, if you don't post signs, then it's probably meaningless because no one's going to know. And I don't know how detailed you want to put it, but certainly proper notice, appropriate notice would be, you know, certainly applicable in this situation. Yeah, you can't, you know, just send out an email once and, you know, 2 years later, well, I didn't know. I think, you know, probably it goes without saying, but if you wanted to make that clearer, that proper notice is given to the public. I mean, I would expect the same of going into a store if they had that policy, that they would notify the customers coming in that you know, what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Representative Harrison. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you for your time and thank you, Andrea, for being flexible with me today because I didn't know how our schedule was going to be for us.
We kept this afternoon a little bit loose and we voted out the biggest bill we're gonna vote out all year, right? before-
I heard 400 pages.
Yeah, 400 and I think the final edit from drafting came down to 435.
Who's the, if I may ask, the lucky reporter?
Representative Morgan.
Some Morgan volunteered, he was enthusiastic.
I will resist the temptation to look on page 323 and I had the, if you'll indulge me, I had the privilege one year of, at that time, it was a 200 section bill. I don't know how many sections you have in it. As luck would have it, came up to report the bill about 5 minutes before 12. And so I got up on the House floor and said, it's my duty to explain the technical corrections bill. There's just 200 sections in this bill this year. And I realize they're getting close to lunch hour, but if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to go through all 200 sections, or we can just go to lunch. Fortunately, we went to lunch.
I gotta think of something more creative because all the good ones have been used. I don't know.
Yeah,
The best ones just haven't been discovered.
Well, that's what I mean. I gotta try to.
Former representative player's threat to the body about reading the whole thing. No, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
400 pages, that would, yeah, that would probably do it. Thank you very much.
So we're gonna break a little bit early. I'm gonna try to meet up with legislative council to get us a speak between draft of the ethics bill and Representative Mark W. for 10 minutes in here, touch base with you after. Yeah, we've got a bit of a day tomorrow. Gonna be a busy week. I think as we start getting a little closer to having drafts that we can kind of, mark up and really dig in through of a couple of these bills. Next week, I may schedule a couple of earlier or later times than we've been meeting, so be paying attention to the agenda, and if folks have like a day they really can't, be here at like 9 o'clock on a Friday, for instance, if we tried to like hear an amendment or hear something before we hit the floor and the things like that, I won't do anything really wild, but just we've had a pretty consistent schedule for the first month here, and I may expand the time, so I'll flag that for everybody if I need to do that in order to get a commissioner or somebody in here to testify, or we need to hear something a lot here, but we've been working pretty efficiently here now. I'm gonna try to bring some of these bills in for a landing. Representative Pigley and I have about ethics bill today, and so I appreciate the collaboration, and we'll probably not get everything into the draft for tomorrow, but if there are things that we didn't quite come to consensus on, we can flag those as we go through the testimony, and we'll try to do a real walkthrough of the drafts if we have time tomorrow. Then we'll pick it back up the following day if we don't get through everything tomorrow, and then by the following week, I'm hoping, and maybe next week we could get to a place where we can get the ethics bills on their way, and a couple of us are working with Deputy Secretary Clark on the grants bill, H-140, and I think they may want to come back to us with some testimony either later this week or early next week with some suggestions, so we can make some progress on that. And there's a lot before us still, so appreciate everybody digging in. I think we're had a good start here Tuesday. Appreciate the laughs earlier. It's amazing what a little sunshine will do. Anybody need anything agenda wise or get on the table before we break? All right, we'll adjourn for the day, and I'll see y'all at 9 o'clock tomorrow.